In the rolling hills of rural France, far from the bustling cities, stands the ruin of a once grand mansion. Its walls are open to the sky, its floors gone, its proud spire vanished into memory. This is Chaumont, a name that, for over a century, has meant very different things to those who knew it: a dream home, a sanctuary for children, a summer retreat, a workshop, and now a YouTube restoration project. Today, we're going to uncover the story of this remarkable building. It's a journey from music halls in Paris to wartime heroism, from summer laughter to midnight fire, and from decades of silence to the sound of hammers once again. Chapter 1: The Birth of a Mansion, 1886. Fade in on sepia postcards of Chaumont in its prime. The story begins in 1886. The house was commissioned as a private residence for Eugénie Bardet, a celebrated opera singer from the nearby village of Mainsat. At the height of the Belle Époque, she had conquered the Paris stage and secured her fortune. Returning home, she built not just a house, but a statement, a large, refined mansion in the latest style. Chaumont was perfectly positioned astride two small municipalities, Mainsat, where the road to the estate began, and La Serre-Boussière, where the building itself stood. From the front, the mansion rose in elegant symmetry. The central section was framed with decorative balustrades, patterned stone and brick, and topped by a steep roof in the mansard style. A checkerwork of grey stone blocks and red bricks set off the facade's three main bays. The central bay carried a vertical rhythm, large windows stacked one above the other, each with its own graceful arch. To one side stood a smaller wing, and to the other, another matching it, giving the house the shape of a cross with short arms. This was no castle from the Middle Ages, it was a modern country mansion, intended for comfort and style. Chapter 2: Family Life and Local Prestige. Eugénie lived here with her daughter, Gilbert. Early 20th century photographs show the mansion in its prime, its roofline intact, its terraces framed with ornate railings, and its gardens sweeping down into the surrounding trees. One image captures Gilbert as a young girl, riding a donkey alongside a friend, with a watchful gamekeeper in attendance. It was an image of privilege and country charm, but history was about to make Chaumont far more than a private home. Chapter 3: Sanctuary in a Time of War, 1939 to 1942. In 1939, Europe was on the brink of catastrophe. That year, Gilbert Bardet made a decision that would define Chaumont's place in history. She leased the mansion to the Oeuvre de Secours aux Enfants, an organization dedicated to rescuing Jewish children from danger. At that time, the Creuse region lay in what was called the Free Zone, not yet occupied by Germany. Chaumont became one of three shelters the group operated in the area. It was placed under the direction of Lotte Schwartz, a Jewish educator whose calm leadership saved lives. Among the children who stayed here was a boy named Judka Herbstu, who would later become famous in France as the comedian Popek. In total, as many as 70 children found safety within these walls. Life was not easy, rooms were crowded, resources were limited, but the alternative was far worse. The mansion's many bedrooms became dormitories. Its large dining rooms served the younger, middle, and older children in shifts. Outside, the gardens provided a rare chance to play in peace, but in 1942, the situation changed. German forces were advancing. To avoid the risk of mass arrest, the shelter's leaders made the heartbreaking decision to send the children away, scattering them to safer locations across France and into Switzerland. Chapter 4: Summers at the Nest, 1945 to 1960. After the war, Chaumont returned to a lighter purpose. From 1945 until 1960, it was rented out to youth summer camps. Renamed The Nest, it hosted holiday groups who filled its rooms with the sound of chatter and games. Old postcards from the 1950s still show the building's exterior much as it had been decades earlier. Only small changes, such as the removal of some balustrades, hint that time was passing. Chapter 5: The Chanel Connection, 1971 to 1986. When Gilbert died in 1967, the property was eventually sold in 1971 to Jean-François Myronet, once a valet and confidant to fashion designer Coco Chanel, and his wife, who had also worked in Chanel's household. They made the mansion their home, At least part of the year, Jean-François set up a jewelry workshop here, creating pieces he sold in Saint-Tropez. Life might have seemed settled until disaster struck. Chapter 6, The Night of the Fire. On the night of February 25, 1986, flames swept through Chaumont. The fire consumed the roof, destroyed the interior, and left only the stone walls standing. Mrs. Myronette was alone in the mansion that night. Trapped upstairs, she improvised an escape rope from her bedsheets and lowered herself to safety. The mansion was gutted. What had stood for a century as a landmark was now an empty shell. Chapter 7, Abandonment and Decline. 1986 to 2014. For nearly 3 decades, Chaumont stood exposed to the weather. Rain and wind entered freely. Without a roof, the building's wooden floors and stairs rotted away. Vandalism and theft stripped away railings and stonework. In 2014, the ruin was sold at auction to a man named Patrick Serget, who advertised it for sale again, warning that the remaining stonework could be dismantled, but expressing a hope to find someone willing to restore it. Chapter 8, The Gardener Who Bought a Ruin. 2022, present. That someone turned out to be Daniel Preston, a 33-year-old gardener from England. In 2022, Daniel bought the property not as a quick investment, but to save it from destruction. Through his YouTube channel, Escape to Rural France, Daniel documents his work clearing vegetation, shoring up walls, and stabilizing the structure. It is no small task. The building is missing all its floors, its internal stairs, its roof, and the spire that once crowned the tower, but piece by piece, Chaumont is being cared for again. Chapter 9, Architecture of a Survivor. Even in ruin, Chaumont's design speaks of its past. The main building has 5 levels, including a basement of sturdy stonework. This base extends outward to form terraces for the entrance stairs. The wings, one on each side, are slightly lower and have 4 levels each. The facades combine stone and brickwork. The roof, once covered in slate, rose to a tower topped with a slender spire, visible for miles. Inside, the old layout can still be traced: basement kitchens and storage rooms, ground floor dining halls, upper level dormitories, and the small rooms for staff. At the very top of the tower was a room with no fixed use, remembered by one wartime resident as a secret meeting spot for children. Chapter 10, Memory and Meaning. Chaumont's story is not only about architecture, but about the people it sheltered, entertained, and inspired. From a singer's country retreat to a wartime refuge for Jewish children, from summer camps to the home of a jeweler, from fiery ruin to slow rebirth, its walls have seen extremes of human experience. A memorial plaque at the start of Chaumont Road recalls the children who lived here during the war. Their voices are long gone from the halls, but their history remains bound to this place. Closing shot, present-day Chaumont, framed by trees, scaffolding in place, tools scattered nearby. Today, the mansion at Chaumont is neither fully alive nor entirely dead. It waits in the borderland between ruin and restoration, and thanks to one determined new owner, it may yet stand proud again. In saving Chaumont, Daniel Preston is not only preserving stone and brick, but rescuing a story from the slow erosion of time.